WNYC Studios is supported by Grubhub. Sometimes getting to a so-called convenience store isn't actually very convenient. But now Grubhub delivers from local convenience stores. Whether you're in the market for snacks, paper towels, or drinks, Grubhub delivers them right from the convenience store to your door. WNYC Studios is supported by NerdWallet's Smart Money podcast. Your dreams for 2022 are closer than you think. Subscribe to NerdWallet's Smart Money podcast for the weekly financial know-how you need to turn your dreams into reality.
You're listening to The Takeaway. I'm Melissa Harris Perry. National courts across Latin America have expanded reproductive rights in recent years. Last week, Colombia's top court decriminalized abortion during the first 24 weeks of pregnancy. Wearing their signature green bandanas, abortion rights activists gathered outside Colombia's constitutional court in the capital of Bogotá to celebrate the historic day. This decision follows rulings in Mexico and Argentina that similarly expand access to abortion. We're joined now by Julie Turkewitz, the Andes bureau chief for the New York Times. Julie, it's great to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Talk to me about the pathway to abortion becoming decriminalized in Colombia during those first 24 weeks.
The decision last week is really the culmination of decades of effort, not only in Colombia, but in Latin America, to decriminalize and to legalize abortion. But what really made this happen in Colombia, according to many people I've spoken to, is the sort of coalescence of efforts across the region. So activists in Colombia have been calling for years to remove a portion of the criminal code that made it a crime to either have an abortion or to help a woman have an abortion. And they have been trying for a long time to sort of move this through Congress. And what we've seen in the last couple of years is not only activists in Colombia coming together around this issue, but also activists in Mexico, activists in Argentina. And the women in Colombia who were sort of working for this finally realized that they needed to draw on some of the tactics that had been used in other countries to make this happen. So about 2 years ago, many feminist activists in Colombia came together just as the pandemic was beginning to form a coalition called Causa Justa. And what Causa Justa did that was different than the efforts of the past was to create this sort of robust, full circle campaign that didn't just look at trying to pass legalization of abortion through Congress, but tried to change public opinion and launch a legal strategy. And so over the last 2 years, they have not only put a challenge before Colombia's constitutional court, calling the decriminalization of abortion unconstitutional, but they've also launched this sort of full circle social media street campaign that really takes a lot of inspiration from efforts in other parts of Latin America.
Is there something important about the word decriminalization that is different or that marks something different than what we might think of as sort of an openness to abortion?
The reason that we use in our articles and the reason that the word decriminalization is being used is because it was criminalized. It was a part of the criminal code. And so the reason that women did not have open access to abortion is because the criminal code in Colombia said that women could be put in prison for several years for having an abortion. So what has happened now is that the criminal code in Colombia has been changed to where abortion is no longer a crime up to 24 weeks of pregnancy. Now, the feminist activists wanted that the criminalization of abortion to be completely struck from the criminal code. So some of them say this is not a full victory because it's only at 24 weeks, but I think most of them understand that this is that most of them see this as a pretty large victory for their movement. So what this decriminalization does is open the window for that openness, and it opens the window for the health ministry to sort of lay out a public policy in which women can more fully access abortion, just in the way that the health ministry in many countries will regulate all kinds of practices like surgeries or use of certain types of medication.
The activists who were so instrumental in moving this along, again, not only in Colombia, but in these other nations in Latin America, do they now have a forward-looking agenda? What kinds of pieces are they looking to move towards next?
There's two parts to that. The first part of it is I think that the women, the activists in Colombia who fought so hard for this, are going to be very attentive to how it is rolled out. Because the big question is now abortion has been decriminalized. The court sentence called on the Congress to create a robust public policy, as well as the health ministry, around abortion to more fully allow access. But of course, the question is, what is that going to look like in practice? And are institutions in the country really going to set up a system that complies with this constitutional court decision? Bigger picture, I know that these activists are going to be very focused on taking the momentum that has been built in Colombia, which recently decriminalized abortion, in Argentina, which recently legalized abortion, and Mexico, where there's a process of decriminalizing abortion. These activists are going to be using that momentum to go to other countries. One of the activists I spoke to for one of the pieces that we wrote following this decision was actually speaking to me from the Dominican Republic, where she was telling me that women there had been calling on the Congress to legalize abortion, and she was there. She's works for a global organization and was there to try and support them in that effort.
Talk to me about the Catholic Church and its influence in contemporary Latin America, and the extent to which the church is perhaps responding to these changes in the region.
The Catholic Church obviously has had historically a very strong cultural influence in the country. And so even people who may not go to church may feel very strongly against abortion because of what they've learned in their upbringing, as well as there are other churches that are increasingly powerful in the region that also oppose abortion. But another very strong trend that we're seeing in the region, or a couple of very strong trends that we're seeing in the region, is a growing secularization, right? So people who don't really consider the church to have a powerful sway over their personal lives, that the numbers bear this out. We also have growing number of women who are educated, empowered, and interested in sort of taking control of their lives. And so the sort of these combination, I think, of that secularization and that growing realization that women in Latin America, can be independent and make these decisions about their bodies and their lives, I think is sort of what we're seeing as the pushback against what, the sway of the church in the region. And I should point out that, the issue of abortion is much, much more complicated around the world, and particularly in Latin America, than just for and against, right? Because abortion is, there are questions of should an abortion be allowed when the pregnancy is the product of rape, or when a woman's life is in danger, or when a woman might not be able to afford that child. And so a lot of people here, I think, are much more, at least in Colombia, at least the people I've spoken to, have very conflicted thoughts around abortion. Like, I don't believe that, I believe that motherhood is sacred, but also I would want my daughter to have all of the opportunities in the world, to have, a career, etc. And so I think one thing that we're really seeing in Colombia, in other countries that I cover in South America, is a sort of confluence of these ideas of I'm Catholic, but also I believe in a woman's right to decide. And so you're seeing all of these ideas sort of come together, I think, in this decision right now.
One very quick last question. What is the gender composition of the High Court in Colombia?
So the court is made up of 9 individuals. The 9 individuals who voted, the 9 magistrates who voted on this particular case, 4 of them are women and 5 of them are men. Interestingly, only 1 woman magistrate voted for more access to abortion, for abortion rights, while most of the other women, or all of the other women, voted against opening more access to abortion, which I think is really interesting. And I think it shows this is not just a woman's issue. And I also think it should, in terms of, I think that there are men across Colombia who see themselves invested in this issue because it affects their wives, their girlfriends, their sisters, their mothers, etc. But I also think their daughters. But I also think it shows just how divided Colombian society still is around this issue, right? And that it's not that all women in Colombia are in favor of abortion. There's certainly, obviously, as shown in this decision, is a rising tide of women who believe that they should have a choice. But that's not the case across the board.
Julie Turkewitz is the Andes Bureau Chief for the New York Times. Julie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I'm David Remnick, and each week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, my colleagues and I unpack what's happening in a very complicated world. You'll hear from the New Yorker's award-winning reporters and thinkers, Jelani Cobb on race and justice, Jill Lepore on American history, Vincent Cunningham and Gia Tolentino on culture, Bill McKibben on climate change, and many more. So please, never miss an episode. Listen to the New Yorker Radio Hour wherever you get your podcasts.